Hi there, thanks for joining me for phase two of our home training sequence in conjunction with the Dunbartonshire Chamber of Commerce as part of their Together for Business scheme. Um, these videos in this phase are a complete shift of focus. In phase one, we were looking exclusively at the shoulder and upper back area. A lot of pain ends up being caused in this area, particularly for people that work at computers for extended lengths of time, or people who drive extensively, or for people who use their phones an awful lot and are sort of in this position. And that pretty much covers everyone. So if you haven't checked those out, I would suggest doing it. Even if you don't have problems in those areas yet, it doesn't mean to say they're not going to come. And doing some stuff to be preventative is much better than trying to fix them once they're there. But if you do have any issues in your neck, your upper back, or your shoulder, then I would suggest checking those videos out. There is now 16 videos in that sequence for the whole of phase one. There are 8 mobility exercises and there are 8 strengthening exercises. And all I'm asking is that I'm not suggesting that anyone does all 16 of them. If you go through them and you try them out and figure out which ones are giving you the most relief when it comes to the mobility exercises and which ones you feel that are hitting the correct spots based on what you need to strengthen, then try and pin it down to maybe 4 exercises and try to do them regularly, ideally daily. And if you can do that, then it's going to take you maybe 5 or 6 minutes each day. You don't have to do them all at once, even, and it should make a huge difference. In this one, however, we're going to switch focus down below and we're going to hit the hip area. And a lot of people end up with hip pain because of imbalances due to the way they stand, but quite commonly the problems come from the fact that we stay seated all day. And if you're sitting in a position where you're even slightly twisted towards your monitor when you're working at a computer, then sitting in that position for a prolonged period of time can cause major imbalances in the development on each side and the shortening on each side, which can cause real problems. But even if it is just straight on, but you're sitting with your hips flexed, as I am now, then you end up in a position where your hip flexors in particular start to shorten, and so they tend to get a lot tighter. As a result of that, the rest of your body starts to compensate, so you end up with tension despite the fact that most people have weak glute muscles. You still end up with tight glute muscles, which is, the worst of both worlds. And that then transfers down, and you end up with tight hamstrings, and the glute medius and the adductors on the outside of your leg, the parts that pull your leg away from the line of your body sideways, tend not to even get touched by most people. And because they are basically working as stabilizers for your hip, you can end up with very unstable hips. So we're going to follow the same pattern we did in phase one, and that is to ensure that anyone who has no equipment available has some exercises that they can do, and anyone who has got limited equipment available, they've got things that they can use to sort of enhance these things and make a little bit more of it. I would suggest for the lower part of the body that having some equipment is definitely useful. We're talking about bigger muscles here, so trying to do it exclusively body weight is difficult, but there are definitely some exercises in here that are incredibly useful, particularly in this first phase. Actually, there's a few here, so I'm just going to run through them now. The first exercise in the sequence is going to be a quadruped hip car. Now, in phase one, we did a shoulder car, a quadruped shoulder car. So it's the same thing, but you're using your leg. It's a bit more awkward. And if you've got a restriction in movement in either direction, whether it be forward and back or off to the side, you're going to find that this is problematic and it's difficult. So have a look at that video, and as well as being a good exercise, it's a good test of whether or not you have got a problem. Because if you can't do this, then you've got a lot of strengthening that you need to do and a lot of mobility that you need to do. So that's straightforward enough. You don't need any equipment for that one. For the second exercise, you're looking at a hamstring dynamic stretch using a resistance band. Now, for this one, you need quite a hefty resistance band. It doesn't have to be insane. It doesn't have to be incredibly tight, but it has to be enough that you've got some give. And some of the really light ones that I've seen a lot of people have at home are not going to cut it when it comes to trying to push against the force of your leg. It's not going to do very much. So you need something with a decent amount of resistance, even if that means if you've got light bands but you've got several of them, looping them all together and using them all at once, that may be what you need to do. But as always, I'll pop a link in the description of this video, and there'll be a link taking you through to show you all the home training kit that we recommend you have a look at. And within that, there's going to be some resistance bands that are of a quality that are worth considering. For strength training, for strengthening up the hip, we're going to be looking at hip abduction on a closed chain. Now, this is an exercise probably very few people are going to have seen. It's not a common exercise, but it is such an effective exercise. I've used this one quite a lot over the last 5 or 6 months, on and off, but ever since we've gone into the lockdown situation, I've done this more or less every day for I think for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and it's made a dramatic difference. It's something that again I sort of do for a while, forget to do for a while, forget to do, like everyone. But because I've been at home a little bit more and I've had a bit more of a regular pattern where I'm rushing to do things all the time, it just involves literally standing up. You can do it whenever you are standing still. So if you're working at your desk, I'd suggest just stand up and do 20 reps on each side. And that may sound like a lot, but it's not. You have to do 4 or 5 to sort of get into the flow of it before you start to feel anything. But yeah, 15 to 20 reps on each leg, and you can maybe go for a walk and then sit back down again. Or if you're making a cup of coffee, by the time the kettle boils, you could have done both legs. So you can honestly, you can do this one wherever you are, whenever you want, but it is incredibly effective. So there's really this one you've got no excuse not to include, and I would strongly suggest giving this a go because very few people work their glute medius, and that's what this exercise works, and it's an important muscle. And the final one for this phase, where you do need some equipment again, is a band kickback. Now, you can use one of two different types of band, and I've shown that in the video. There's actually a third option, which is the ones with the straight band and handles, which I don't have, but you could use them as well, and I do explain that in the video. But you can either use a hip band, or you can use a big sort of looped resistance band for this. I find that the hip band is easier to give to someone who's struggling to get the connection with their glutes because it's one less thing to have to think about. The longer band gives you a little bit more variability in what you get out of the band. You can make it tighter or you can make it looser depending on how you're feeling at the time and how much resistance you feel you need without having to move to another band and another weight of band. So that's what we're doing for part one. Check out the videos. As I said in phase one, it's just the same thing. There's only 4 exercises. If you have a look at each video, even if you just spend one day on each of them, look at video number 1, give it a try. It'll take about 90 seconds to 2 minutes max just to do those exercises or each of the exercises. So give it a shot for exercise number 1 and then see how you feel. If you think you're going to benefit from it, maybe keep it in on day 2 and do it, but then try exercise number 2. And if you feel you're going to get more benefit out of exercise 2, or you feel like you're going to benefit from both of them, maybe keep them both in until the next day and then try exercise 3. But the idea is, by the time we get to the end of this phase, again, there's going to be another 16 exercises, all for the hip area. So that's going to be working your glute maximus, your glute medius, your hamstrings, your hip flexors, your quads, abductors, adductors, everything in that area is going to be worked or manipulated in order to try and give it more mobility. But not everyone is going to need everything. So find where you've got tension, the things where you've got severe tension, work on the mobility of those sections, find where you've got weakness, and wherever you've got that, work on the strengthening exercises for those muscles. The two things combined is going to give you a much healthier hip area. So hopefully that all makes sense. But as always, I'm completely contactable. So just get in touch, leave some comments in the video, click into the video and then put comments below. Or get in touch directly with me. You can contact me on mark@dcsfit.com and I will happily get back to anyone with any questions they have. So hopefully these are helpful. And if there's anything you want me to focus on in the future, just let me know and I'll see what I can do. Until next time, have a great day. Enjoy the sunshine as it is at the moment if you're watching this not long after I upload. And I will speak to you come part 2 of phase 2. Bye for now.